because employment is a great, major issue with our returning vets for reservists and guardsmen. Especially now with the downturn in the economy, a veteran can be coming home and his job is no longer there. It's disappeared. So we got to be prepared for that kind of stuff too. So we're discussing all of these matters and also trying to find solutions or alternatives to meet these needs as our veterans return from Kuwait and wherever they may be. So the issues are ongoing, and there are things that we as advisory board members must be aware of that are happening throughout our communities that we need to share with other board members too, because they eventually will meet the same kind of challenges too. So constantly we're communicating, and I feel strongly that we have a great board. They all contribute and they have positive thoughts and goals in mind.
But having said that, I'm going to pass it over to Angus. Obviously there's a couple bills that you've been listening to this legislature that is trying to deal with maybe some additional resources or expansion of resources.
And we've been, to be honest, we're trying to focus on the living vets this session. The burial program and our veteran cemeteries are absolutely critical, but we have to be able to take care of our living vets who are coming home. And so what we've tried to do on that effort, after in November of last year, when the economy was free falling and tanking, it became very clear the Council of Revenues, which is a group that forecasts the state budget on what the state is going to bring in, to which we have to base a budget on, we knew it was going to decline even rapidly. And then on top of all of that, just for the, so your viewers can understand, is that this war has been unlike any other, and that we've seen a nationalization of the National Guard men and women, and they have been put into active combat zones alongside with regular forces. And however, when they come back, the federal government has told us that they will not help us. They're your responsibility 100% because they're in the National Guard men and women. You've got the general funds are drying up. You've got programs and positions being cut. You have veterans coming home, National Guard men and women, that have, combat-related needs. And my fear is that if we rely solely on general funds, that many of these programs and services, not only would they never be expanded, they would be cut. And you have a drawdown just announced of 10,000 more troops being brought back from Iraq. And without these programs and services in place, what happens is there's two options. They'll either go to the social health and safety net for the general public, which taxes that, which is already being stretched to the limit, or they fall, what I call proverbially, fall through the cracks, meaning that there's no help given to them. And so, when you look at you talk to health experts, or as I have, they said when given the situation of no help, a lot of times people in general, not just veterans, but people in general will turn to self-medication and other types of things. And so what we try to do is to create a special fund for veterans, the Veteran Services Programs. And what we did is, in order to create a special fund, you have to have a logical nexus between the fund, the revenue of the fund, and the fund itself. So what we tried to do is, in this bill, we put a small tax, I'll just call it what it is, on alcohol beverages that would then go into this special fund. Now, according to the Department of Taxation, 1 penny tax would raise about almost $400,000. So 2 cents, basically, would raise about close to $800,000. That could provide for programs. It could provide for positions. This could provide for the things our veterans are coming into. Now there's been some very negative criticism as well. This bill is trying to say that veterans are drunks. No, that's not what it's saying. What the bill is trying to do is to create the logical nexus so that we can use this funding source for the fact of the matter is, you talk to health experts on the front line, they'll tell you if there's no services or programs available, there's only one option left for most people, and anybody, not just veterans, and that's self-medication.
Right.
So what we're trying to do is we're trying to put this in place, and this has actually gotten some attention from the federal government that applauds the state's, the state of Hawaii standing up and recognizing this is going to be a situation and trying to provide for it now. So when more of our vets come home, there'll be programs and services for them available. And that's really what it's trying to do, is prepare for what we know is coming and not just stick our hands in the proverbial sand and then all of a sudden we have this problem, and guess what, there's no general funds available, the programs and positions aren't available, and our veterans aren't even getting the basic services that they should get.
Right. And so I want to build on that. Let's talk a moment about these basic services. I mean, when veterans come home, you mentioned one, you said obviously needing to get a job, you know, but also they need to get housing. They also need to, if they're having problems sleeping or they have some post-traumatic stress or combat related, you know, is there counseling available? You know, that, how do they transition back? Now, I know I've spoken to the Office of Veteran Services, the State Office of Veteran Services, and they say there's these re-entry programs and there's these kind of transition programs, but the reality is when someone is like a month away from being released back into civilian life, you're sitting them through classes talking about transition. I suspect they're thinking about just wanting to get home. You know, and so how do you check up on them? How do you guarantee that you don't lose them like you were talking about? They go back in the community and they just kind of permeate into the community and get these lost. How do we make sure that they stay connected?
I think the first thing is to ensure that the proper positions are available. I mean, there's a measure going through to provide for another counselor position for the Maui Office of Veteran Services. We have one counselor there right now, a position that's being temporarily filled, but the amount of requests that are coming and the amount of cases have to be dealt with requires too. And here's the thing, is that these OVS counselors actually serve as what they call Veterans Administration or VA access points. In other words, they sit down with their returning veterans and they say, okay, here are the programs and things that you as a vet can qualify from the VA. We'll help you fill out the paperwork, we'll talk with the case manager at the federal level, and what that means is then they're able to bring in federal dollars into Hawaii.
Yes.
So that it then becomes, so that we're making, by using these, what they call them VA access points, we're bringing in federal dollars to help with our veterans, thus freeing up state resources to be able to tend not only to our National Guard men and women, but also to other areas associated with veterans, such as housing and those types of transition programs that are currently being offered.
Right.
So that's where I see the front line, you know, really is getting those positions staffed and expanding them, because we're going to need to expand them. We're already overloaded.
Right, but that's going to be, that's really a state responsibility. That's the role the state can play.
Yes.
Is to be in the community, being connected with our members of the community, and helping them know what's available to them. Am I right?
Yes, and I'd like to elaborate further on what Representative McKelvey just said. The counselor's duties include being an advocate for the veteran.
Okay.
In other words, to process that application, to process all of the appeals for the applicant, for the veteran, so that they can receive their just benefits. All of their entitlements are many times overlooked or denied because all the I's are not dotted and the T's are not crossed properly. So the counselor, for lack of a better title, the counselor is the one that's there to help the veteran get this process through so that they can receive that ultimately. I also do that as a volunteer to help veterans because I know how highly taxed our counselor is. And so by taking special cases, I will try to assist the person in the appeal process. And in many instances, it's taken 3-4 years to get the veteran the benefits that he rightfully deserves. And it's because of the lack of documentation from way back when.
Yes.
Most of the guys I'm helping out are Vietnam veterans. And for us to journalize or document or receive documents or evidence of the person's participation in any combat activities during that period of time that he or she was in country is very difficult to ascertain. And in order to do that, we need to go back to the person's records or finding people who were in the same unit or experienced the same situation at that particular time and location that our subject veteran experienced, and it's a matter of providing all of these validation, if you will, for the veteran to ensure that we will be able to find the proper support to make that claim.
Right.
So that's the difficulty that we have right now. To alleviate that, I have suggested that for the returning veterans from the Middle East, we start this process to return back to civilian life that you were describing. What I would like to see is that during that period of time, they have the opportunity to journalize, like a diary, all the significant events that occurred to them while they were in country, so that anytime in the future, especially for post-traumatic stress disorder, we can pinpoint any particular incident or occurrence that happened 20 years ago, for example.
Good idea.
So that we won't have to go through what we're going through now with the Vietnam veterans. You know, it takes us 2, 3, 4 years to just to establish the documented evidence of the person being in that environment. So,
well, Lloyd, I hate to tell you, but we're running out of time. Otherwise, not to interrupt you, but I just want to close this and make sure that the audience, that whatever we want to say to the audience, we say this, and that is, you know, now what? Now what's next?
And I think the next thing to do is to get these bills, you know, hopefully out of the Senate and from our end as well, and to get them to conference and to get them up to the governor's desk. I think that's and then the vets are watching.
Yes.
I mean, they've seen a lot of bills fail and never make it out of the process, and a lot of them, frankly, are very jaded. And I think this is Fisher cut bake time for the legislature as a whole, and for the executive branch.
Yeah.
You
Thank
know,
you.
and that's why I'm glad that they're posting all this testimony online so that people can read exactly who is saying what about these bills, you know, because that's really important. I think people need to realize what is being said in this testimony process. But to me, the commitment is we got to get these bills to the governor's desk, and, you know, hopefully working with her, we can get them into law, and that will show real progress.
So
And I think that's going to send this message to Washington as well, that we're serious, and that could help bring more federal resources home.
So I'm going to close saying we are serious. And you got 3 advocates here, and I hope that you stay involved on the veteran issue and share with your local legislature how you feel about veteran issues. Thank you, and aloha.
Aloha,
Thank you.
everybody.